Unboxed, an IWLA podcast. As we wrap up 2024 and head into the holiday season and the new year, we thought that it would be fun and festive to take a look at warehouse horror stories of the past, present, and future. Scrooge and Tiny Tim will not be making an appearance in this episode, but you will hear some fascinating tales from two individuals who have been in the 3PL warehousing sector for decades. So sit back, relax, and enjoy today's topic of warehousing Unboxed, warehouse horror stories of the past, present, and future. We'll dive right into the episode right after a quick word from our sponsors.
Enveo is the industry's most trusted provider of logistics data management, visibility, and shipping optimization software, helping 3PLs of all sizes move their logistics forward through data-driven technology. Leading 3PLs including NFI, Kenco, Geodis, Saddle Creek Logistics, IDS Fulfillment, and more put their trust in Enveo to streamline operations, scale revenue, and optimize the shipment lifecycle from order through delivery. Bring the #1 data plus technology solution to your operations and connect with the Enveo team at www.enveo.com.
This shipping season, beware of horrifying returns. Are mysterious boxes and envelopes with unknown returns lurking in the dark corners of your warehouse? Are they causing nightmares for your team?
Fear not. With Returns Desk powered by Octalon, you can banish those return terrors for good. Our automated software transforms the final mile of consumer returns from a frightful experience into a seamless process. This season, let Returns Desk powered by Octalon help you conquer the chaos of returns. Visit returnsdesk.com today and turn those returns nightmares into sweet dreams.
Are you tired of overpriced, underutilized, autonomous mobile robot fulfillment solutions that drain your profits? It's time to switch to Zebra Robotics Automation. Our cutting-edge Zebra Symmetry Fulfillment solution is engineered to reduce your costs per unit and give you that unbeatable competitive edge. Don't settle for less. Maximize your profits with us. Discover the future of fulfillment at zebra.com/fulfillment.
Welcome back to Warehousing Unboxed, an IWLA podcast. I'm Angela Moore, Education Specialist and IWLA Canada Executive Director, and I'll be your host for today's episode. Today, we are joined by Bob Moran, CEO and Principal with First Logistics, and Troy Cochran, Pricing Manager with ODW Logistics. So, gentlemen, thank you for joining me today. Bob, let's start with you. Go ahead and tell me about yourself. How did you end up in this industry in 3PL warehousing?
Well, I was in college and I was driving a truck to pay my tuition. And I ran out of money midway through college and decided, well, I'm just going to drive a truck. And I did that for about 6 months before I said, you know what, I'm just going to start a trucking company. And that led to warehousing. And then warehousing, I've been doing this since 1981, so 44 years. And I've always kind of owned my own businesses, even if it wasn't, I owned a real estate company at one point. But I've always kind of owned my own business. I worked for a lot of big companies in between. I worked for DSC Logistics. I worked for the unit companies in ITEL, and I worked for USCO and Osborne Hesse. So I've been around large companies where they've got a lot of resources and found my way through their management structures, generally leading to the top somewhere. But I never really liked working for anybody else. I always enjoyed working for myself. So I've been an entrepreneur pretty much my whole life.
Right. Well, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. And Troy, thanks to you as well. Why don't you tell us about yourself and how you ended up here?
Started out at UPS, working part-time, paying my way through school. Graduated with a degree in advertising and had the opportunity to go full-time as a driver at UPS. So I did that. And one thing led to another, and that led to me being at UPS for 18 years, most of that in management and operations, the last 6 years in sales. Enjoyed the sales piece, but then ended up in consulting after I left UPS. Did that for a dozen years, and then had an opportunity to come to ODW Logistics as their pricing manager. I told my boss, I said, I don't know anything about running a warehouse. I've been in a lot of them, but I don't know anything about running them or certainly not pricing them. He said, I think you've got the analytical mind that we need to be able to price, the warehouse product for us. So one thing led to another, and I've been here now for almost 12 years and enjoy what I do.
Great. Well, thank you for joining us. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to talk about warehouse horror stories of the past, present, and future. So we'll start with the past, and let's just dive right in. Bob, do you have a story from your past in 3PL warehousing that you would like to share today?
I do, and it kind of pinwheels off of what I said about being an entrepreneur. One of the first entrepreneurial endeavors I ever involved myself in, we bought a building from a bank for $1 a square foot. It was a 500,000 square foot building. It had prior to that time been the Agar Hams manufacturing plant. So it had brick floors. It had multiple temperatures, cold, hot. It had smoker rooms. It had blast chill freezer rooms, and it had been on mothballs for about 7 years when we bought it, which is why the bank wanted to get rid of it so bad. And so we put a lot of money into renovating it. We got it back up and running. We had the freezers running. We took out all the smoke houses and the parts of the building that we didn't need. And we had freezers, coolers, and dry storage space there. And I got a call. I was at a dinner party one night on a Saturday, and I got a call from the security team who worked in our facility. It was the chief of our security, former Chicago police officer, and he said, "Hey, Bob, you better get down here as fast as you can." I said, "What's going on?" He said, "Well, they're evacuating us right now. I won't be able to talk to you again." This was long before cell phones. But he said, "I won't be able to talk to you again. You just got to get down here." So I drove to the warehouse, and one of the first things that I noticed is there was an enormous presence of fire equipment and apparatus. There were people lining the sidewalks on both sides of this warehouse, on the east and north and the south, all over it. And the police were going door to door and evacuating the neighborhood because an ammonia line had been suspended in the ceiling below an evaporator. The evaporator has a condensation pan on it, and it drips water. The pan has tape in it so the water doesn't freeze because it's a freezer. So the tape broke down. Nobody noticed it. We had monthly inspections. The inspector said he was inspecting it, but there's no way because it developed so much ice that it pushed itself away from the hanging rods that were hanging it from the ceiling. The evaporator fell, went right through this 4-inch ammonia delivery line, and put about 400,000 gallons of ammonia into our building and ruined products from everything you can imagine. We had pickles, we had salad dressings, we had Nabisco candy, we had bread, we had frozen popsicles, we had pharmaceutical frozen stuff. It was just a nightmare. The fire department literally put water into the ammonia system so it would totally be dissipated, and we could never start this building back up again. So all that product was lost, and basically put this company out of business. And I was glad not to be a shareholder in the operating company at the time. I was just part owner of the building, which that's another whole horror story. That's another whole horror story. But I was probably in my early 20s when that happened, and it was a pretty rude awakening to understand how much liability and risk we actually have as warehouse operators.
Oh, no. And it was ammonia. So the smell must have just been horrific.
It was terrible. It was terrible. By the time I got around the building one time, the Salvation Army was already there serving coffee to the firefighters. That's how quickly this thing escalated. And, when you see the fire department coming in with a big old John boat on the top of their truck, I'm like, where are you going with the boat? they might have been fishing or something, but it was just surreal. It was so surreal to be that young and to be the one who has to make all the decisions about what happens next. And I spent the next month in that building on a Bobcat with an air pack on and a hazmat suit, pushing all of the waste that had melted product, and the flies and maggots were unbelievable. And we had to take it to a landfill. The landfill took so much of it, they said, we don't want any more of it. So we had to find another landfill to take this to. It was really just a nightmare. And
how long did it take you to kind of clean up the whole building and have it all settled?
We had all of the product out of the building within maybe 10 days. And like I said, we were pushing it out the doors. We were just pushing it with Bobcats inside the building. And then there were other guys on the outside dressed similarly, and they were scooping it up and putting it into dumpsters, which were then being taken to a landfill.
Oh, man.
But boy, it was August. It was some of the hottest weather. It was just terrible.
Wow.
I hope I never see anything like that again.
That is a horror story. Oh, my gosh. Troy, what about you? What's something from your past that you can share?
I don't have anything quite that disgusting, I guess, from the maggots and everything. Wow. We have a customer who ships wine. They are a wine club, so they ship about 1 million bottles of wine a month to their customers. So their customers have a subscription, so I can get any 12 bottles of wine that I want. So trying to design this solution, and they came from a 100% manual operation and really wanted to get into something that had some automation to it. So we designed the solution. It was going to be all, not completely all automated, but had a pretty big automation component to it, from belts, moving the cases down the belt, picking at various locations, and then being able to package them out at the end. So we designed this big solution that involved pick the voice. We went through 3 or 4 different fingers. We had printers that would print the label of the winery on the outside of whoever it was supposed to be shipped from. So we had 5 or 6 different labels. So the box would go through the rollers, print the label on the side as it went through, and then it would get packaged up. So as it's wine, you have to kind of store this stuff and ship it through distributors to some states. So for example, in the state of Ohio, where I'm from, it has to go through a distributor. I can't ship it directly to you. It has to go to a distributor. So you palletize this stuff, you send it to a distributor. They have to, quote unquote, hold it and then reship it out through your final destination carrier. So a lot of the states do the same type of thing. So we've priced this. We finally win this business through this RFP. And it was a lot of work to get there because there's automation and trying to design the solution, working with the automation company that we chose to work with on this. And so we start this thing up, and it just went belly up from the get-go. I mean, it was just a nightmare. And the next thing you know, we're millions of bottles behind, and it is just a nightmare. We're trying to catch up. Things aren't working the way they're supposed to. We're trying to get, orders out the door. We're thousands of orders behind, and we're coming up on peak season when volume doubles for a month, right? So we're trying to get through all of this. The relationship with the customer's not going well. It was just a nightmare. And we just kind of kept persevering, kept pushing through it, trying to make changes, update it. And it took us, quite honestly, probably 18 months to get to a point where we were at a good steady state where we weren't upgrading or trying to update something in the system on a regular basis, and to the point where the customer was finally like, okay, we feel pretty good about this relationship now. Things have moved forward. I mean, we just recently renewed them to another 5-year deal, but it took us, 18 months of back and forth, and you got to get my orders out, and, and you're throwing bodies at this thing because, that's all you can do. Trying to get orders out, just throwing people at it all day long, trying to get caught back up. It took a long time, and it was just really, really painful.
So what do you think was the root cause there? Was it the automation? Was it the amount of manpower that was dedicated to kind of the internal workings, or what do you think?
I think the biggest thing was this was our first real foray into automation, and not knowing what we didn't know at the time made it that much harder for us to process things and move forward. Like I said today, it's a really cool automated site today. I mean, we've got a box maker. It puts in the insert at the bottom. It goes through the fingers and gets picked. The insert goes on top. It's automatically taped shut. It goes into a storage location. So like I said, if I'm pulling all of my Texas product to go today, it pulls all those packages out. We've got an automatic palletizer. It palletizes them, stretch wraps it, and then sets that pallet aside so we can stage it and get it ready to go. But again, it was mostly not knowing what we didn't know as we got into the automated business, I guess, or trying to automate this operation.
It was a learning experience for everyone.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt.
Well, putting automation into a warehouse tends to be a bit of a learning experience for a lot of companies. All right. Well, let's move on to present issues. What are some of your horror stories, things that you are currently working on? Maybe they're partly resolved stories, but not all the way resolved. Let's kind of dive into the present. So, Bob, I'm going to circle back to you.
I've got a couple. I was supposed to be semi-retired about a year ago, but I'm still working pretty much every day. So I do get involved in a lot of things. I know that we've got I think the biggest problem we have right now is we transitioned from a homemade software product that the prior owners of this company built and sold to me when I bought the company. We were transitioning to Manhattan scale, and we've been doing this transition for about 5 years now. As we bring one account at a time across from Codal, which was our product, onto Manhattan scale, we're finding that, it's like Troy said, there's a lot of things you don't know that you didn't know. And it got to be a pretty expensive exercise to pick up the phone and call Manhattan and ask for support all the time. So we brought our own support team in, and we do most of the customer integration work on our own. And I've got a customer who just refuses to integrate. They're about a 10% slab of our business, and they occupy 60 out of almost 2 million square feet, 60,000 of it. So there's a lot of activity in the account, but they just refuse to integrate. They're afraid that we're going to get into their SAP system and find out how they do things and why they do the things they do. And we've had a really hard time working with them. We have a 5-year contract that's coming to a close sometime next year. And, I'm going to make it mandatory that they integrate with us. And it would save us tons of money. And that's money I could give back to them. I'd be willing to give back to them. I'd prefer the automation that Manhattan provides to us. It helps us do a much better job of selecting product, picking product, receiving product, measuring our KPIs is all done automatically in the system. To have to do all that manually is a lot of extra work. It's a whole lot of manpower just being wasted because they won't allow us to integrate our systems, to connect them to systems.
Wow, that's a current customer of yours that's doing that. Wow. And it's so much extra work that you're even considering severing that
that's
contract or that relationship, really. Wow.
Well, the reason that I feel that strongly about it is because every other account in our warehouse, in all of our warehouses, we have 5 buildings. Any employee from any facility can go to the other facilities and work because the system drives everything they do. It's a workflow data system. So you can waive orders, and they all work the same way. So if I'm picking orders in Alsip today and they want me in Chicago Heights or in Hodgkins tomorrow, there's nothing different. But if I have to bring people in to help with this account, they have no idea what they're doing. And you have to try and retain the people that are working in this account with all kinds of perks because they're as frustrated as I am that the customer just refuses to step into the current century and integrate to this wonderful software product that's available to them. So it would save them a lot of money as well. I don't understand why they don't want to do it, but they fought us on it every step of the way.
Well, good luck. I do hope that they change their mind so you can keep going with that contract there. So, all right. Troy, what are you currently working on? What are what's a present story?
A present story. I think just going through the growing pains of going from, I've been at ODW for 12 years, from the mom and pop operation to a more corporate type of atmosphere, and just trying to standardize operations and the things we do and the way we do things. I mean, when I started here, we had a campus, which we still have today, but we had 6 buildings on that campus. We had at least 3 different trash haulers coming to those 6 buildings. Now, these 6 buildings were all basically in one location across the street from each other around, but we had 3 different trash haulers because we just weren't taking advantage of, our buying power and being able to do those sorts of things. And so as we're growing and doing those things and trying to figure that out, it's interesting. Don't get me wrong. It's fun, but it is a challenge. And I mean, for 8 of the years that I was here, I was a one-man show. So I did all the pricing. So I got all the data. I did all the data analysis. I did the solution. I worked with my boss on that final solution, but I did 90% of that work, and then he and I would finalize it. Then I got to create the proposal that's going out the door to the sales guy. So, I mean, it's just, and now my team is 5 people. So going through those growing pains and training people and trying to get everyone up to speed has been, it's a good challenge to have, but it's definitely a challenge.
Well, and when you're a team of 1 and you have you said 5 people, there's a certain level of trust that you have to pass off to your colleagues then when it's not just you anymore. You have to trust that your other colleagues are doing things like the pricing correctly. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you for sharing that. And now we look towards the future. So what are some of the future potential horror stories that you're thinking? What's kind of racking your brain is something that could happen?
Well, I'll start. This has been a past problem, a present problem. It's probably going to be a future problem. It's the only thing that really keeps me awake at night. And it's the audacity that some of these taxing bodies have with regard to real estate taxes. You start a lease in the middle of their appraisal period, and you have a $1 a square foot rental rate that is attributed to taxes. Well, the municipality goes through its tax planning, and they raise their taxes. You don't get a warning letter. You don't get any opportunity to negotiate. They just hit you with a bill. So I have a building, for example, that when I first leased it, it was $1 a foot on a 400,000 square foot building. So I was paying $400,000 a year to Cook County, Illinois, for taxes. Tax assessor said, no, we're going to charge you $2 a foot now. And so that following year, I had to pay $2 a foot. They beat me on appeal. They wouldn't let me appeal. Then they went to $4 a foot. So the building that I'm leasing from the landlord is about $3.60 triple net. The landlord collects $3.60. Cook County collects $4. They don't own the asset. That scares me to death. That's just audacious. I think they've just gone too far. We don't know what they're doing with this money. We don't agree with what they're doing with this money, if we do know, and we don't get any say in it. And so the warehouse operator's response to that has to be, A, try to appeal the taxes if you can. We've tried that, not very successfully, in my opinion. And then B, you've got to pass those costs on to your customers. So, and then what your customer does is they've got to pass those costs on to the consumer. And so it's a really sneaky, hidden way to take money out of people's pockets at the lowest level. They're not helping the people they think they're helping. They're hurting them. And so businesses have to react to that. It's the only thing that keeps me awake at night. I just feel like any given day, the tax man can come with his hammer and just beat me to crap and take money from me for no reason. So I don't, that's my biggest fear going forward.
So you started out at about $1 a foot, and now you're up to how much a foot?
The first year I leased the building, I paid $400,000 in property taxes.
Okay.
Last year it was $1,600,000.
Ooh, that is a lot.
That's over about a 4-year period. That's a lot of increase.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I can definitely see why that would keep you awake at night. That's a huge jump in taxes, especially in a short period of time. That's only 4 years. When you think about it.
Really, I mean, it's really overnight. You get your tax bill and all of a sudden you're like, wait, what's going on here? It was supposed to be $1 a foot. Now it's $2 a foot. And then you got to go through the appeal process. And if you do the appeal in the right time frame, you might get it before a judge. If you don't do it in the right time frame, they disqualify your appeal. It's like a freight claim. If it's more than 30 days, the carrier doesn't want to hear about it. So,
well, and that's one business in Cook County times however many other businesses are dealing with the same thing.
There's got to be hundreds of millions of square feet of warehouse space in Cook County.
Yeah.
If everybody gets $1 a square foot rate, what are they doing with all those extra hundreds of millions of dollars? And it's not to get political. It's not political. It's financial. It's just going to trickle down. The cost gets trickled through our pricing system to our customers, who do the same thing with their costs as they put their prices together for their products. And you're wondering why eggs and milk and bacon and everything is so expensive. That's why. It's not the government taxing the grocer. It's all of the taxes that end up at the grocer's till when he collects money from the consumer. And that just scares me. I think it's wrong, and it bothers me a lot.
Oh, yeah. I could see where that would keep you up at night for sure.
Yeah.
All right, Troy, what's worrying you?
What's worrying me? Having enough people to keep the operations running.
So labor.
People to do labor. We've been growing at a pretty good rate, anywhere between 10 and 15% over the last several years. So that means new buildings, new opportunities, and then trying to find enough people to staff those opportunities. We've been fairly fortunate in Columbus, where we're located. I'm going to say 50% of our buildings are probably located, but I mean, it's not just us in Columbus having the issue. I mean, it's countrywide for us. in most of our locations. It's leveled out some since the pandemic has ended, but definitely during the pandemic, that was one of the worst problems we had. But it's not completely resolved yet, and it's still an ongoing issue.
Still something that keeps you up at night?
A little bit, yes.
Well, you're also making promises to customers, and you want to be able to follow through on that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you. Past, present, and future stories. So you've shared some stuff about what you're worried about. Let's end on a high note. What are you excited about as we move forward? So, Bob, what are you excited about?
Well, for 44 years, I've been kind of watching what's happened in the industry demographically. When I first started in this business, there were no people of color. There were no women. There were very few people who owned companies that weren't men. And, it was very exclusively prohibitive to other people for whatever reasons, for gender, religion, ethnicity, you name it. And over the years, what I've seen is education has improved to a gigantic degree. Most colleges offer really highly qualified supply chain programs. I think when I first started in the industry, there were one or two colleges that actually had a bona fide supply chain logistics program. They didn't call it logistics; they called it physical distribution when I was a kid. But I'm excited for the diversity, the youth, and the education. I think the industry is in good hands. I think more and more people, to Troy's comment about people, I think more and more people are finding their way into this industry and staying in it. I think they like. There's no 2 days that are ever the same. That's the best part of this work, the job I am. Never have the same day twice. It's always a different day. You never see the same people every day. They never have the same problems every day. You never have all the same victories every day. It's always very different. It's a dynamic industry. I think people are coming into it they're better educated. They're more fit to be good at it. And, I learned by making mistakes pretty much. But, people are being taught this stuff in high school now. Supply chain's a word that's tossed around in high school. So it was never mentioned when I was in high school. So I'm really excited about the youth and diversity in our industry and the fact that education is stepping up and helping provide qualified people to our industry.
Makes it difficult to step away. You said you were semi-retired and still work every day.
It is hard to step away. I like to work.
All right. Troy, what are you excited about?
This is kind of coming full circle. I know I talked about automation being my horror story, but I'm excited about the new types of automation that you keep seeing. And they're coming up with all these new developments to make things better, more cost appropriate, I guess. They're easier to get into. Again, you still don't know what you don't know, and there's a little bit of fear in that, but helping to reduce the headcount is something that we're really trying to do so we can, continue to staff the operations that we do have and these new opportunities. So we've been tasked with adding some automation opportunities to our new models as we move forward. So we'll see where it takes us and what happens in the future. So I'm excited about it because, like I said, there's a lot of new stuff out there to try. So
yeah, technology has been amazing.
Yes.
And some of the new things that are coming out. So great. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me today as we discuss warehouse horror stories of the past, present, and future.
Thank you, Angela. It was great talking to you.
Thank you.